Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Grow with Redbud. So we are here this evening to enjoy a very special evening with Leslie Warren, who is Redbud's Conservation and Advocacy Co-Chair. And she's going to speak with us this evening about putting passion into action, advocating for what we love. There's nobody better to speak with us about this than Leslie, because Leslie has been, in fact, a fabulous advocate for conservation in Placer County in particular, but for Redbud in general for a very long time. And she's very, very knowledgeable about not only conservation issues, but about how to make a difference in this area. So if you've come because you want conservation to be something that really makes a difference, but you want to know how to really do this, Leslie is the person you should be hearing about this from. Yay, Leslie! So just before we get started, just for a minute, I want to make sure that everybody knows that Redbud is going to be having our fall plant sale. Of course we are, for native plants, but we're going to be having it in a slightly different fashion. Of course we are. We're going to be having a safe online plant sale, and it'll be happening in early October. We'll have first the opportunity for members to buy native plants, and then an opportunity for the general public to buy native plants. And we have more details about this on our website. And Shane, I'm sure we'll be putting our website address into the chat, so you'll be able to just copy and paste that into your browser, and then you can look under calendar, then plant sale, and you'll be able to go to our plant sale page. There'll be more details coming, and there'll be a final list of plants available coming up shortly as well. And so you'll be able to start planning what you're going to get from the plant sale. There will be fewer plants this year than in previous years because of how things have worked out as far as the online plant sale, but I'm sure you'll be very happy with the plants that you get. And also that we're going to be having a couple more sessions of our Grow with Redbud Festival of California native plants. So we have this coming Saturday, we have What Makes Native Gardening Special, and that's by Chrissy Freeman. That's me. I'm the person who's talking. I'm the publicity chair for Redbud. And then on next Wednesday, September 23rd at 7 p.m., mine is at noon at this, pardon me. And on Wednesday, September 23rd at 7 p.m., we're going to have Nancy and Ames Gilbert speak about rainwater harvesting and rainscape strategies for healthy watersheds. Nancy, as probably most of you know, is our horticulture chair, and both she and Ames are very knowledgeable about native plants, and they have both taught a course on rainwater harvesting and rainscaping strategies in another context. So they are the people from whom you want to hear about this topic. Really, the Grow with Redbud has been a fabulous festival and continues to be. So you can see below the link, but also if you go to our website and you go to calendar and then you click events under calendar, you'll come up with all the links to all of our upcoming events. And just one more thing, and that is, please do volunteer to do something wonderful for native plants. You can do something wonderful for native plants via Redbud. We have opportunities in terms of, we have open positions because we're running elections for president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. We also have chairs of several committees available. Field trips is coming open because Shane will be, has put his hat in the ring to be vice president. Thank you, Shane. And we also have program and a couple of others and volunteers. And then we also need some more volunteers for plants, for the plant sale. So if you're interested in volunteering for the plant sale, you can do that by going to volunteer, then the number 4, then redbud@gmail.com. And if somebody could put that into the into chat, that would be terrific. Then people can just copy and paste that. So I think that's it for now. And now I will turn the floor over to Leslie. I will stop sharing my screen and we will turn the floor over to Leslie.
Oh, hi, everyone. I'm Leslie Warren. And I'm really happy to be with you tonight. I'm really happy to look out the window and see a bit of blue and a few clouds in the sky. What a nice, nice change from what it's been like for so many weeks. I just hope it bodes well for our future through the fall until the rains come. Anyway, I really appreciate your attention tonight. Hi, Peggy. I don't know who else is out there that I know, but thanks for being there. I've just got so nervous about doing this. I really bit off more than I could chew. So bear with me. Tonight I wanted to talk about why we need to take our passion for native plants and put it into action. And when I say put it into action, I'm talking about getting political with it. So I'm going to talk about why our local governments, our city councils and our board of supervisors and the commissions that work under them are so important to our health, our quality of life, and our happiness. I'm going to talk about the rights and obligations that we have as citizens to participate in our local government and what that might look like to participate, and kind of what's happened to citizen participation over the years and what the future is of citizen participation after COVID. And I want to talk about why the citizens that are participating stridently in local government are failing to drive good land use and planning and the consequences of that, and what we can do about it. So tonight we're going to learn how we can put our passion into action. And I hope it'll just be a rallying cry at the end that one and all we will become activists and take control of our local land use policy, because that's such an important factor in our quality of life. So again, I'm Leslie Warren. My background, I've been in Placer County for 35 years, but I grew up in Marin County. Just lucky to have been a child living in wide open spaces and with a mother that talks to plants. And of course, now I talk to plants and my granddaughter talks to plants. Yeah, we've just been women of the earth forever. And I started out at UC Berkeley. My first job was in city and regional planning. And even at 22, my interest was in protecting the environment that I saw being destroyed outside the urban core, which in those days, in the 1970s, our cities were pretty suffering from disinvestment. And the whole white flight thing was happening. And I jumped in thinking that I could make cities more livable and stop people from going out and churning up our green fields and paving them over. And we know it wasn't successful, but I found other ways to make it successful. So I'm here tonight to tell you a little bit about my story about that, and just to enlist you in being an avid citizen, active citizen, like I am. I'm just going to tell you a story that shows where I put my passion into action. I used to be on the Placer County Planning Commission, and this was back in the 1990s. So it was way back. Had a couple of little kids, there was a beautiful piece of land at the end of our road, which everyone called the Meadow. This is the American River Canyon where I frolic, but my meadow, this is in my meadow. The American River, the meadow was somewhere that all of the neighborhood visited and enjoyed. And while I was on the Planning Commission, I would have stacks of reading. I'm talking like 2 feet tall after I put my kids to bed. And going through one of the projects, lo and behold, it was a development project for those 79 acres at the end of our road, which we loved. And it wasn't by any means a perfect piece of land. For 30 years, it had been called Racetrack Meadows, and people had been ripping around it with their four-wheelers and motorcycles. So the wetlands there, I didn't even know there were wetlands. The land there was suffering. But when that thing came across my desk, I just knew that I couldn't vote to support a rezoning there because the land was zoned one house for 4.5 acres. And the developer was looking at the 74 acres and wanted to put 79 houses on it. So that was a rezone, and it was against the general plan. But going the way that things go in local government, the rezone was granted and the project was approved, and the developer went away with all these entitlements for this land. But over the years, nothing happened. And then I heard that the property went back to the original owner, which was an old San Francisco family. And I called that family and asked if they'd be interested in donating the land to the Placer Land Trust since the developer had vanished. And that if they donated it to Placer Land Trust, which was something I was organizing at the time, they could be our first donor, and they'd probably get a bigger tax write-off for donating the land than they would selling it to a developer. The answer was no, and they put it on the market for a very affordable price, and we bought the meadow. I put my passion into action, and we bought it, and immediately started a restoration program, curtailed the off-road vehicle activities, and, you know, within a matter of, I would say, 18 months, the wetlands were back, the orchids were showing. It was such a magical explosion of nature recovery. And we were just so blessed to be witness to it and to be the stewards of it, which we are to this day. So we're talking, since 1997. So we've been out there a long, long time. And the meadow restoration is a continuing process, especially now with fire management of the land and just controlling the continuous onslaught of invasives. But I think the meadow story is a really good is putting your passion into action. And I was passionate about saving that meadow, and I put my passion into action. But not everyone can buy land to save it from destruction. But everyone has the bandwidth and the resource capacity to do something, to do some action, because each action matters. And that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. You know, there's 90 local boards and commission seats seeking volunteers in Nevada County and 130 in Placer County. I mean, that's just the county. There are an equal number of city boards and commission seats crying for citizens wanting to do civic action in cities as well. And if you just think about what it would mean if people that were passionate about plants or passionate about environmental protections or passionate about air quality preservation and watershed restoration, if we were the ones that took those seats on those boards and commissions, it would really make a big difference. But a lot of times those things go begging, and people take those seats that don't care about the things that we care about, and we have a real recipe for trouble. When you think about how decisions are made, you know, decisions that are made at the local level have much more direct impact on our lives and the quality of our lives than decisions, say, made at the state level or at the federal level. So if there's anywhere where we should put our energies, I think it's at the local level. But a lot of people just forget about the local level of governance. You know, we pay our taxes, and if something isn't bothering us, like a neighbor cutting down an oak grove or a gas station going into the community park, we just kind of let our local government move along. And that is the problem, and that's the reason why when we look at the landscape of Placer County, we see not only the fire hazards in the mountains, but if we look down in the valley around Roseville and the whole beautiful vernal pool wetland that is West Placer County, we wouldn't see the hundreds of thousands of acres of urban sprawl, strip malls, parking lots that define West Placer County. It's not all gone. And for that reason, I want to get us all engaged in defending what's left, because there's some really important pieces that are left, and we're in a battle that really requires your participation. So when we're citizens, we're a member of a political community that affords us with rights and affords us also with obligations. So our citizenship rights are political, civil, and social. So our civil rights, if you think about it, are the rights that are necessary for our individual freedoms. It includes the right to own property. But you know, the development that's happening in Placer County is unaffordable to 87% of the people that live here. People that live here take their equity and they move around in Placer County, but the preponderance of people that are buying in Placer County aren't people that live here, because our incomes it's not affordable to our incomes. So we're foregoing our open spaces to a transient community that's coming in that hasn't really contributed tax-wise to building our beautiful community. And I think we need to flip that so that those workers and taxpayers that have long supported Placer County's economic engine are the ones that are able to buy the homes. So that's a civil right, our right to own property. Our political right is the right to exercise and participate in the exercise of political power. You know what, though? When we citizens organize and go down to City Hall, or when we go to the Board of Supervisors, citizen participation that we try to exercise is viewed as an obstacle to be overcome. We're not viewed as stakeholders whose interests need to be reflected in the decision. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. Who are the elected officials beholden to? That's the question. And why? Then the third one is our social rights, and that's a right to a modicum of economic welfare and security. I feel like among our civil rights, our social rights are also being jeopardized in Placer County, because our economic welfare and security is jeopardized by poor air quality. We are the 5th worst air quality in the nation. By our compromised water quality, and just the fact that our farms and fields are being vanquished by bulldozers, and the quality of our air and water is such that we no longer have a healthy place to work and live, which is our social right. So what are we going to do about it? Because while we're tending our native plant gardens and admiring our blessed flora on the hiking trails, developers, abetted by our local governments, are turning our last wild places and farms into strip malls, sprawl subdivisions, and used car parking lots. And this is happening despite a myriad of laws and regulations that are meant to protect us and our environment. Our particular concern is plants. And we know that through the process of photosynthesis, plants produce oxygen necessary for all forms of life. And when we take away plants, all forms of life would come to an end. But if you see how much of our carbon sequestering green space is being replaced by impervious surface, and those impervious surfaces on average produce 42 per home, 42 metric tons of CO2 a year. We're doing a disservice to our own humanity. So our local governments are forever building outward with that catastrophic environmental effect to our plants and all species, to our air, our quality of life. And when they do this, they're aiding with entitlements, and that's the right to build, and public subsidies. They're aiding some of the richest people on the planet, the developers, who are filling our earth with this wasteful sprawl and the coffers of our elected officials for their re-election campaigns. So does it matter that 7% of our population can't afford the product that these developers produce? Why are the Board of Supervisors allowing this product to come on the market? No, in the past 3 years, not one unit of affordable housing has been built in Placer County. And that, despite the fact that our general plan requires that 10% of units built be affordable to that 87%. Instead of building the units, developers pay into a in lieu fee fund, which is $4,400 per house. And the people that live here can't find an affordable home. So it ends up the people that do that many service jobs that Placer County supports are having to commute in from long distances, or they're buying a home that they really can't afford, and they're foregoing health insurance or quality food in order to pay that mortgage. So the consequences of not having a balanced housing market for all income groups is really a disservice to you and me, because people don't have health insurance have to use the emergency room, and children that aren't healthy don't do well in school. And there's just so many consequences of this disservice in housing product all across the social spectrum. So the growth patterns which continually push growth outward not only drain the vitality of our existing urbanized areas, they demolish the natural ecosystems in their path. And our elected officials view the ecosystem defenders, us, as hurdles rather than stakeholders, as I said. And so our concerns aren't reflected in the outcomes. So when I say take our passion and put it into action, I mean taking the act of citizenship and really embracing it as a personal responsibility. Yeah. What are our citizenship obligations? I want to hear from you about that. But for me, the number one thing is defending the environment that I love and that makes my life worth living, and that supports life for my children and your children, and we deserve that. We deserve to have a healthy place to live and work. David Attenborough said it so well. He said the natural world is the greatest source of excitement, the greatest source of visual beauty, the greatest source of intellectual interest. It's the greatest source of so much that makes life worth living. And I agree with that fully. Yes, the natural world is really under attack at our local government level. Any season of the year when you drive through our communities of curvilinear streets, those garage-fronted homes separated from neighbors by 2 big traffic lanes, then a bike lane, then sidewalks. I mean, the neighbors are so far apart from one another that there really isn't an opportunity for neighborliness. You just feel like these communities, there's some innate human nature in them that's missing. And would a human choose to live in that environment were there not another product available to them in their price range? I think we can do better. It's just, let me just tell you what happened at the Planning Commission this week. There's a vernal pool wetland in West Placer. It's 111 acres. It's zoned for agriculture, and the county is proposing to create a new industrial city on these vernal pools. The Center for Biological Diversity, bless them, are suing the county to stop the conversion of 14 square miles of vernal pool wetland that supports 14 listed endangered species and sequesters billions of tons of carbon in the air every year. But the county went ahead and approved a project in that land area that's in litigation anyway, and it's going to take 111 acres of vernal pools and wetlands that support all those listed species that thrives, it teems with life. And we know our wetlands are nurseries for insects, and we need our insects to pollinate our food. It's just an absolutely essential habitat. They approved a project to pave it over, to fill it first, then pave it over for a project called Carvana, which is a 10,039 parking space used car lot and refueling station. And so are we getting added value by approving a Carvana? I mean, only 3 miles down the road, we have Roseville, which has a preponderance of marginally successful car dealerships in their auto mall, which are already suffering. And the Board of Supervisors in their wisdom, the Planning Commission in their wisdom, approved this project that will create a huge draw away from Roseville. And it's the old battle that I fought in San Francisco with my first job with George Moscone in the old days of urban renewal. Instead of San Francisco losing things to the outward migration of business and people, now it's going to be poor Roseville losing it, pulling things out. And so the tax base and all that Roseville needs to thrive is going to be diminished. So logically, it doesn't make much sense to me. Practically, it doesn't make much sense, and morally, it doesn't make much sense, especially when we know that agencies of the state have already said that this project shouldn't go forward without a project-specific analysis. So yeah, this is a picture of the vernal pools out there in the West Placer. Yeah, it's a spectacular and unique ecosystem. Anyway, we're fighting that Carvana project, but when the citizens organized to say that this project is illegal, that it's in conflict with our general plan, that the general plan that's been approved is in litigation, that this is probably going to cause the county to be in another extremely expensive litigation situation, really fell on deaf ears, because when projects come to the Planning Commission or to the Board of Supervisors, pretty much the wheels have already been greased and the project is going to get approved, regardless of the exercise of citizen participation that we show. So, projects like the Carvana use car lots get approved every week by city councils and boards of supervisors. And unless there's citizens there en masse to intervene, we are losing an opportunity to practice our good citizenship and protect the community that we love. So I'm not a no-growth person. I have grandkids and kids, and I understand that our population continues to expand. But there is an alternative to the land use patterns that we've been seeing since the 1980s, and it's called smart growth. And then when we do smart growth, we do infill in our existing urban spaces, and we make our urban spaces more walkable and attractive so that people want to live there, just like I used to do in San Francisco in the old days. And why isn't smart growth practiced when it makes so much sense and it's so much less costly for the county and the cities to deliver services to infill development? It's the developers have usurped the legal authorities and the institutional controls away from us. Even though our general plan says that this land is going to stay in agriculture, when a developer buys that land from a rancher and starts slowly working the process to get that land rezoned for a higher and better, we think it's not higher and better in my account, to a development use, you can bet it's a foregone conclusion that that general plan is going to be amended and that the zoning is going to be changed, because the development community that works Placer County has been at work in Placer County for decades, and there's a very familial relationship among the Board of Supervisors. They fund the campaigns of our Board of Supervisors, and they party with each other. They go hunting and fishing together. It's hard to say no to a friend, and I think part of that familial relationship is the problem. So what I'm proposing is that we build our own familial relationship. And in doing that, we'll be more at an even par with the development community. So I'll follow up on that thought a little bit later. You may remember the college reading The Tragedy of the Commons. It was based on an 1843 essay where we imagine a meadow where community members graze their cows, and for all memory, the grazers protected the meadow resource by limiting grazing to below the land's carrying capacity. Then one of the grazers had the idea to increase her herd on the meadow beyond that carrying capacity. She experienced an increased benefit from selling more cows or selling more milk, but it was at the cost of degrading the common resource for all the other grazers. And eventually, the land was unable to support any of the grazers, so everyone lost. So how is that analogy applicable to what we're seeing today? 1843 was a long time ago. Our commons today are our air and our water. Development gets approved, and things that we share in common beyond the boundaries of that development are tainted because of that development. Our roads are more congested. Certainly our air is fouled. Our water is tainted. And the natural systems that enrich our spiritual and physical health disappear, and wildlife corridors are blocked, and hydrologic systems are damaged, so that even systems outside those property boundaries that are terra firma are also the commons being degraded. So development approvals like Carvana have become a default in our society's behavior, and it's just repeated automatically. And I think we can change the dynamic. I mean, I've only been at this since the early 1970s, but I think we can change it. And the reason I can is because there's a thing called the tipping point. And if only 3% of us gather and speak with a united voice, we can totally change the dynamic. It's a University of Pennsylvania study, and it's been reproduced by other academic sources, so I know it's real. But if right now we have so many individual groups, say even California Native Plant Society, if we are barking at the tree by ourselves, we have less impact than if we gather all the organizations that care about the environment, and we all speak with one voice. If we accumulate that 3%, but they have to be 3% worker bees, not 3% hanger-oners. We have to have 3% of our population actively engaged. We really can take control of our environment. And it's going to be more than just being a voice at those planning commission hearings. If we get 3%, we can elect our own officials. We can have our people on the Board of Supervisors. So what do you think about taking on, putting your passion into action with me, and we'll take on a few things. We'll take on learning to be lobbyists, and we will meet on a regular basis with our elected officials and our planning commissioners and speak the plant talk or speak the environment talk, whatever the critical development project that's on our table at that time is. And what do you think if, in our 3%, we have a large enough community that before every public meeting, there's a little window called public comment. And what do you think if each of us took our turn and spoke at that public comment 3-minute window and just shared our love of plants, and I mean even shared stories from Julie Carville's book. She has so many wonderful stories about the wonder of plants. And my current favorite, Braiding Sweetgrass. And then Doug Tallamy's film, which I recommended that you watch. He gave a talk 2018 to the California Native Plant Society state. That talk on YouTube, Restoring Nature, is so dynamic, and I've shared it with my neighbors who were oak tree choppers, and really made a difference in how they think about the native plants that inhabit their land, their gardens. So I think if we spoke the talk to elected officials regularly, we'd start building sensitivities that would give them pause instead of doing the knee-jerk automatic approval of a development project, which is the state of things today. Also, we need to really learn to use the law, and we'll use it together. There's you know about the California Environmental Quality Act, and you know about environmental impact reports. We have a general plan that tells us about how our land is going to, in general, build out. And then in that general plan, there's a zoning that tells how densely that building, how it's going to zone out, whether it's commercial or residential. But then when a project comes forward, not Carvana, unfortunately, but most projects are required to do an environmental impact report. And when citizens are on top of that in a big way, commenting on the environmental impact reports at the notice of preparation level, at the draft EIR level, at the final EIR level, we set ourselves up to file a lawsuit if need be. But more importantly, it puts the developer and the Board of Supervisors on notice that we're watching, and it requires that the EIR be complete. And that's what we want to have, a complete and thorough analysis. You know, a lot of times those EIRs go through and they get approved, even if the project is so horrendous. We had the project around Carvana it had 55 significant unmitigated impacts that were major, like 1.25 billion pounds of CO2 generated every year, and 600,000 more cars on our streets, no public transit for a new community of 80,000 people. But it got approved, and that's the one that we're suing on. But that's another part of the thing that we can do when we get our 3%. We can pool our funds, and when that project happens, we'll litigate, because we can speak softly and respectfully, but we can also carry a big stick. But you know, the most important thing of all is taking up elected seats or even volunteering on the board of commissions, or have a crying need for volunteers. You know, I just think that a lot of our young people don't realize that government is a fabulous career path, and politics is a wonderful career path too, even though right now it doesn't seem so. But the Board of Supervisors get a fabulous salary and unbelievable benefits. And from that, that's a springboard to the Assembly, and that's a springboard to the Senate, and then it's a springboard to the House of Representatives, and it's an incredible career path. And also, there's just fabulous jobs working in government. and we need great people to work in government. I'm so excited. I'm so excited about our new Auburn city manager. You know why I love this man? Because he loves his city manager job. He is the son of a city manager, and he is the grandson of a city manager. What a wonderful family legacy to guide cities. And I really trust he's going to guide Auburn, city of Auburn, in a beautiful way. I'm really excited about him. So who's going to run for office, or find people that will run for office? You know, a lot of times when members of the Board of Supervisors finally leave, and they're there for 26 years or more, they pick a successor. And a lot of times it's their staff assistant. So we don't even get a fresh chance to bring in new blood because we don't really have any candidates. So think about it. Who can run for office? It's too late to run for 2020, although we have actually 64 super candidates that are running and taking seats on boards and commissions because we've been working on this recruiting process. But think about who could run for Board of Supervisors. So we're going to have 2 open seats coming 2022. And when we have our 3% tipping point, we will have people that can raise money for campaigns and really bring a successful campaign to an end. So, you know, my faith in local government got started way in high school when my Latin teacher and my journalism teacher, Mr. Canel, made me go to city council meetings and write articles for our high school newspaper. It goes back that far. I mean, I love local government, even though it's my nemesis. And then at Berkeley, my mentor was a visionary, Victor Jones. And together with Victor Jones, when I was just a kid, 18, we worked on policies that eventually created the Association of Bay Area Governments. And that's like comparable to our Sacramento area Council of Governments here. Regional government is what became a process for helping build better communities. So both professionally and then I went to work for George Moscone in San Francisco, and oh my gosh, working in the neighborhood, which it was a gift. I was so privileged to have that time in San Francisco. But I just am saying, both professionally and personally, I just have active citizenship in my life. You know, I've just been proud to serve on boards and commissions and contribute the best I could to my community. And I want to encourage you to think about doing the same thing. So, yes, we've lost some very painful battles. Oh my gosh, I've had so much heartache and heartbreak over the years, but there have been no periods of my life where I've given up. You know, I fight for nature's life like I am fighting for my own and the lives of my children and grandchildren, because I really am. When we lose nature, we lose everything. So, you know, and after 26 years of trying to make urban sprawl stop out of the city, I realized, you know, there was a hiccup. I wasn't doing it. I started Placer Nature Center, and today, Placer Nature Center, 30 years later, is still providing nature education to children. And I did that because I thought if adults don't get it about preserving nature, then children will grow up appreciating nature, and they'll be the saviors that we've been waiting for. So, I don't know, I fight for nature on the local government level because it most directly affects my life. And I am infatigable for it. But I must admit, Julie, with this book, Lingering Hollow Gardens and Braiding Sweetgrass are my Bibles. They keep me going. I feel like these are my soul sisters. So the love we share is comparable for wild places and wild things. And if you read those books, I think you'd get the bug because they're kind of radicalizing. They set your passion mode into action. Oh, anyway, I'm working on a new project, part of this tipping point, and that's to bring organizations like California Native Plant Society, Audubon Society, all the climate action groups, fisheries groups, together, and we have 16 groups organized in an alliance. And so when we have an issue, like the Idaho-Maryland mine, notice of preparation on the EIR was just published, we sent out an action alert to all 16 groups. And those 16 groups sent it out to all their members, and boom, the county of Nevada was bombarded with citizens' letters of concern. And that means that EIR, when it's done, is going to have to address every single one of those issues. And it means citizens are going to be aware and active to attend those public hearings and let their voices be heard. And maybe they'll decide when they go to those meetings, I can do a better job than they can to protect my environment. I'm going to run for office. And then we'll be here to help your campaign. So I hope that all the trauma and travail nationally and locally can be overcome, and that the outcome of it all will be a kinder and gentler society that restores our earth and serves all people equally. You know, I have hope about that. You know, I've had hope my whole life. It has my hope reigns eternal. It does. Hope isn't a feeling; it's a virtue, and we have good reason to practice it now, because we know it is the path to success, because we know about that tipping point, and we have no alternative but to embrace hope. And I hope you will turn your passion for native plants into action as an active citizen, and challenge those elected officials to give us the citizen rights that we deserve, and that socially, politically, and I can't remember the third one, but I hope you do. Anyway, when you're ready to get involved, contact me through Jean at California Native Plant Society, and we'll guide you and support your success when you run for office, and we'll put you to work together with our 3% team so that we can really get decision making to the right course. It's about time. Anyway, thanks for your interest and for your time, and may you all be well. Thank you.
Leslie, thank you very much. We have all been glued to our chairs listening to you, and hopefully we will get up off of our chairs and do something as you have suggested. So a couple of really good questions have come up in the chat, and so let me read them to you. Not to worry, you don't have to read them. You can just keep looking at us. And let me interpret them, because there's some, just a little. So one, what I wanted, one of the things that someone mentioned was they mentioned the fact that there's an election coming up. For those who are part of the Nevada Irrigation District, there is an election coming up for Nevada Irrigation District seats on the same day as the general election, November 3rd. And the results of that election, depending on who gets elected to those open seats, that will either save or, as someone said, will either save or kill 7 miles of the Bear River under an expanded Centennial Reservoir. This person, Shane says, it's a grab for rights to sell that extra water, out of the district. It's outside the Nevada Irrigation District. It's water. There's a lot of water that would go to expansion in Placer County of additional development, and Shane says it's half the amount of water that LA uses. So my question here, where I think Shane is going, is what can or should Redbud do to point out the effects on native plants and their related ecosystems of this Centennial Dam issue?
Well, I think the more pertinent issue is who is going to be supporting the dam and who isn't going to be to support the dam, and throw our energies behind the campaign for the person that, you know, that's not going to support the reservoir. Isn't that the more current issue?
You know, you're probably right. So you'll be, is there anyone, will you be finding out who those people are? Shane, will you find out who those people are? Will we bring that to the board at the upcoming board meeting?
Well, we are actually, as far as I understand it, not allowed to advocate for specific candidates. So we'd have to find a way to navigate that. We can certainly advocate for issues as far as political action goes. But yeah, and also I did write it in the chat, but I just wanted to make it clear that statement actually did come from a YouTube user and not myself. I just entered it into Zoom so that we could be able.
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. I didn't.
A 501c3 cannot endorse a candidate, but a 501c3 can put information out on candidates' positions on issues. So it's not to say that our newsletter couldn't talk about what's happening with the Bear River and what voters' options are.
Okay. And so do we know of anyone who has done any work on the effects, because this is Redbud's charter, done any work on the effects of native plants and their related ecosystems? As far as
I'm sure the environmental analysis looked at that.
Okay.
Well, I would think.
Good. Okay.
So the person that commented probably would want to check with the Nevada Irrigation District and ask them to send them that section of the environmental impact report.
Okay, and we could do that too. I mean, we Redbud could do that if we were going to write something up in the newsletter about.
I mean, that's just sharing information. It's not political.
Okay, so here's another question. Shane had asked, and I think this is just from Shane. You mentioned many vacancies within county committees. And when I looked into joining a county committee, it required meeting every other Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. As a working person, this is impossible for me to commit to. Do you have any advice for working age people to get involved with local government when the structure of the system seems stacked against our participation?
That's a really good point. Yes, it does. The only thing I would say about that is that if that person was passionate about getting on that committee and thought that they could bring something important to the table, that getting appointed and then explaining to whatever staff person manages that committee that due to work schedules, the meeting can't be held from 10 to 11, then accommodations could be made. I don't think it's cast in stone. It could be flexible.
Well, that's an interesting possibility. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. And there was another question. Oh, yes. Ray Lynn wants to know, I'm wondering if I could get the location of the vernal pools in Western Auburn. She says,
it's West Placer.
West Placer, sorry. Yes, it is West Placer. Yes.
Yeah.
I want to see them.
Well,
or could you, are they all on private land, Leslie?
They're not all on private land because a lot of them are on property of the solid waste management facility. But if you drive out, Fittyment, industrial, if you drive along the road that goes by the Thunder Valley Casino and head out that way in the spring, you can't miss them.
Would you be willing to, let's say we are still in COVID, you and Shane should talk after this about whether, if we're still in COVID next spring when the vernal pools look so awesome, whether you might be able to arrange with Shane to that he could do. Shane, would you be interested in doing a virtual field trip to the vernal pools in Placer County?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, most definitely. Absolutely.
I thought so. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, just then you could share the vernal pools with everyone. And Leslie, you could maybe add some commentary to Shane's virtual field trip. He could interview you and splice a little bit of that in there. You never know. Well, does anyone else have any other questions? Type them into chat. Leslie, are there any training sessions coming up for people who want to learn a little bit about how to get started in terms of understanding this kind of documentation?
Really good. The Registrar of Voters has regular workshops on running for office, both in Placer County and Nevada County, and they're actually very good. The California Native Plant Society had an advocacy training last Saturday, and I understand that's going to be posted on the website. The Nonprofit Resource Center in Sacramento has lots of resources for community organizing and training people for candidacy. And we have a lot of people that have run campaigns that are available to provide consulting services. So if people are interested in stepping up, yeah, we can find the resources that they need to be successful.
Okay. Okay. And then also if people just want to learn more about what, if I'm reading an EIR, how do I read an EIR? I know you've had things like that in the past.
Yeah. Well, the state has there are guidelines on how to review EIRs that the states publish that are quite accessible. But I think the best thing to do if there's people interested in wanting to learn about how to read EIRs and write comments that, have traction when it comes to getting responses from the EIR consultant that's writing the actual report, that we should probably, if we get another, we could do another class on that. And David Magny from CNPS did our training for us a few months, I got about a year back, and either he or other colleagues that I know, we could bring together to do another training if there's people that are interested.
I think that's a really interesting idea, Leslie, definitely.
Okay.
If people are interested, is there a way, someone asked, Jean asked, if people are interested, is there a way that they can donate money to support the litigation to save the West Placer County vernal pools? Yes, there's a litigation fund on GoFundMe. It's called Alliance for Environmental Leadership. And if you go there, you'll be able to donate. Okay, so if they go to GoFundMe, the money you donate is tax deductible. So you can be as generous as you want to be. Yeah, we really want to support the Center for Biological Diversity's work. So tell us about the Center for Biological Diversity. Had you mentioned? Well, it's a national organization that we began courting when the West Placer development was just coming online, and they picked up, they were with us the whole way through the process, providing comments, attending the hearings, and ultimately filing a lawsuit. And the lawsuit is challenging the county's destruction of 7,000 acres of vernal pool wetland because they're protected by the state. Wow.
And it's the county is the project applicant. It's not a developer in this case. Placer County is the project applicant for the destruction.
Oh.
And that means that
Leslie-
we're paying for the EIR and all the consultant studies, which well exceed $10 million because the Placer County is the applicant.
Leslie has written about this proposed Placer.
It's approved. Yeah, it's
Yeah, okay.
dangerous. It's approved.
Okay. And she's written about this, and it's been in one of the 2020 Redbud newsletters. So it wouldn't take too much to find out what she's written about it there, but I'm sure you've written more about it on the Alliance for Environmental Leadership's website as well, Leslie?
Yeah, people can go to enviroalliance.org and see a lot about it. In fact, on that website, you can see citizens funded and created an alternative development plan for that West Placer Vernal Pool Prairie that is a smart growth community. It provides jobs for all the workers. It has a much smaller footprint than the county's proposal. And yeah, it's a livable, walkable community. It just, it's really something to see. So you can see it if you go to the AEL website. You can actually turn the pages through the smart growth plan, and it compares the county's proposal with the smart growth proposal.
I can hardly wait to move in, Leslie. That's where I'll go when I move out of the country and want to live in town. Well, does anyone else have any other questions?
I want to say hi to Pat M. She's been smiling at me so sweetly through this whole thing.
She's a picture.
Yeah, I know she is. It was
cute,
nice to
isn't
look
it?
up and see her smiling face anyway.
That's right. We should all be smiling faces.
Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
thanks for your time. Thanks, Chrissy.
Yeah, Jean, did you have any last remarks you wanted to make? I'm going to wait for Jean to unmute herself.
Yes, Leslie, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your passion, and it helps encourage us to be able to find our own and take action to protect the places we love and the plants we love. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean.
All right. Well, I'm so glad everybody could come. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you can join us for some other Zoom events that we're having coming up soon, including Chrissy's presentation in 2 days on Saturday.
At noon.
At noon.
Sorry.
And the link is on our website. And it's on why is gardening with native plants special? And I look forward to it, and I hope you can join us again as well. Take care. Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night. Oh, should we